Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Pop Culture Playhouse, where we have another great installment of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. In this week's episode, we're going to take a look at the complete series of the Bob Newhart Show coming from Shout Factory, the return of the Gorgon label with their debut title of Death Spa, Dan Curtis's Dracula starring Jack Palance, Umberto Lenzi's Gang War in Milan from Raro Video, and some Scream Factory love with House in the Alley. All this and more, so sit tight and we'll be back in just a second. Alrighty guys, and welcome back. The first title that we're going to take a look at this week is the phenomenal 1973 television movie of Dan Curtis's Dracula, starring Jack Palance. Now, I had actually never seen this film before, but I had heard about it for so many years. And, growing up with, the iconic, Universal monsters, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula was a character that I always had a lot of affection for. I loved the whole look and, kind of like the erotic nature of the character, and I just loved the whole myth behind Dracula and vampires in general. But for whatever reason, Dan Curtis's adaptation has just always evaded me, but thankfully MPI Home Video is debuting this out on the first time on Blu-ray, so very exciting stuff. I walked into this one very open-minded, but I have to admit that I was a little caught off guard with the casting of Jack Palance. I mean, I grew up watching Jack Palance. I really associate him best with Tim Burton's Batman, and then of course with things like City Slicker, so seeing him don the cape and, kind of becoming Dracula was something that I wasn't really expecting, because he just seemed so American, for the Dracula role that I didn't really know how it was going to work, but luckily he did a phenomenal job. It really blew me away just how great Jack Palance was. I mean, you go, and look back at the classics like Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee, and while, some possessed more sex appeal and others had more, they kind of invoked more of like a fear and kind of a scary nature to themselves, Jack Palance I really felt had the best handle of both of those worlds. I thought that he was mature enough as an actor, a little more aged and gruff, where he was able to kind of tap into this really, domineering and sinister, look, but still retain this really great sex appeal and this allure about his character. So he really knocked my socks off. I thought that he nailed the role completely. This is obviously produced and directed by Dan Curtis, who was most famously known at that time for, his popular gothic soap opera, Dark Shadows, which I grew up, watching all the time on the Sci-Fi Network. So his adaptation is really good. The screenplay is actually provided by Richard Matheson, who is a huge name in, the genre circles. He's been responsible for things like I Am Legend, as well as contributing to numerous episodes of The Twilight Zone. And, it follows the myth and the lore of Dracula really well, while injecting, a much-needed love story, like a love subplot to Dracula's tale, and I think that it really, really benefited the film and made the story that much tighter, and it's definitely a tool, kind of, like an injected subplot that's been kind of carried over to numerous adaptations after this one. But, like I said, had never seen Dan Curtis's Dracula, didn't know what to expect. Jack Palance's casting definitely caught me off guard, but it really knocked my socks off. I loved everything about this. They definitely, retained a lot of that great gothic atmosphere that Curtis, really perfectly nailed in Dark Shadows. So he really fits in to the world of Dracula and Bram Stoker's story, like a glove. I just think that he hit all the right notes. Richard Matheson's screenplay is really phenomenal, and just, the added subplot of that love story with Dracula is really great stuff, and definitely something that a lot of other people appreciated, because it's been used time and time again since this television movie adaptation. But yeah, had a great time with it. MPI Home Video's Blu-ray release is actually being restored for the first time in 2K from the original 35mm camera negative. So you can imagine that this thing looks really great. Skin tones are very natural and true to their source. Black levels are handled really well. Just a really nice amount of detail in the clothes, like Jack Palance's cape and, all of the other late 1800s type of wardrobe that you're going to see in this film. But it just really looks very phenomenal for a television movie, and I can't really imagine a better treatment for this ever being served in the future. In addition, you get a great slew of special features, including an archival interview with actor Jack Palance, who is a bit of a method actor, and he goes on to say that he was actually a little scared to take on the role, and he was happy when the filming actually ended because he really thought that he was kind of getting into the role of Dracula a little bit more than he really wanted to, so he was really pleased once production was wrapped because it was just a dark place that he didn't really want to spend that much more time in, but great interview to be had. There's also an interview with producer-director Dan Curtis that talks about the whole formulation of the film and kind of what he brought to the table, which is a really good watch. You get outtakes, you get TV cuts, because of course when this was on television, you know, some of the scenes, some of you know, the more gory scenes were kind of trimmed down for its television debut, but you know, I guess all, you know, the TV cuts aren't included in, of course, the main feature of it, so you kind of get all of you know, the bloodshed and gore that you would hope to expect, but the TV cuts are added in as a special feature, so you can kind of compare them, which is a cool touch that they added in. You get a Spanish and French audio track as well as a trailer and subtitles. So a really nice package and a really phenomenal video transfer from MPI Home Video makes Dan Curtis's Dracula definitely one of my favorite Dracula adaptations that I've never seen. I'm just really kicking myself in the head that it took me this many years to see this adaptation, but really great stuff. So of course, if you're a fan of, you know, the classic Universal monsters and of course, you know, Dracula and vampires specifically, then Dan Curtis's Dracula gets my highest recommendation, and I definitely encourage everybody to check this out when it becomes available May 27th from MPI Home Video. And next up, guys, continuing their exciting Summer of Fear lineup, Scream Factory debuts another one of their more contemporary acquisitions with House in the Alley, available May 27th on DVD only. This film actually broke box office records in its home country of Vietnam when it was originally released back in 2012, but now Scream Factory is bringing it stateside for everybody to enjoy. In this film, it deals with a recently married young couple getting acquainted with their new home with a baby on the way. Unfortunately, the wife suffers a miscarriage, and her sanity slowly begins to slip away from her when she refuses to let the remains of her dead baby leave the house. Her husband, meanwhile, is trying to keep everything together, his own sanity, and, you know, trying to maintain a job and console his wife, but slowly but surely, supernatural occurrences take place in and around the house, and the husband has to fight to find a way to keep him and his wife from terrible things from happening to them. This is a film that really blends the worlds of, you know, real-world horrors with a supernatural, you know, vibe to it. And I know that this is the type of film that may not be up everybody's alley, no pun intended, of course. This is a film that, you know, deals with a, you know, a dark subject matter, people experiencing a miscarriage, and like I said, it's a dark kind of area that a lot of people don't want to go to in a film or a horror film because it's just a little too close to home, a little too close to the, you know, the reality-based horrors that we see every day, you know, in the news or in our personal lives. But this film does it really, really well, and it was very surprising because, like I mentioned earlier, Vietnam really isn't a territory that's best known for their genre output, but House in the Alley really blends, you know, the real-world terrors with, you know, the supernatural world very, very well. It's a film that really takes its time to get established and really introduces you to the characters before something, you know, supernatural or, you know, otherworldly happens. And I really appreciate that. I really liked that the filmmaker really took his time to kind of develop the characters, and it really allows you to kind of get into their personalities and really see what's going on psychologically with them. And I think that that's really, you know, the true core of this film that really makes it work is you're really understanding, you know, the trauma and, you know, the depression that's settling in, specifically with the wife, you know, suffering, you know, just this, you know, unbelievable, you know, experience of a miscarriage in her life, and she's really just going through the motions of depression, you know, sleepless nights and whatnot. Meanwhile, her husband is just trying to keep it together by, you know, keeping, you know, the factory that him and his mother run together while, you know, trying to kind of build their new home that they just recently bought and turning it into, you know, a happy place, but, you know, it's just kind of been met with this, you know, really devastating, incident with the miscarriage. So it's really cool that they kind of showcase that and really get you in the mindset of, the terrible stuff that's going on for them. And then, of course, the supernatural stuff really gets into it. You kind of learn later on in the film exactly what is going on in the house. And I don't want to spoil it here because, it's a film that, like I said, it really takes its time developing its characters, and the story is kind of all the better for it. It doesn't really go for, the in-your-face jump scares or, supernatural ghosts, creeping around every corner like other films of this ilk might have. It takes its time and it really kind of plays on a more psychological, real-world rooted terror. So, like I said, it may not be for everybody because I know some people don't really like seeing, content like this, but I have to give it to Scream Factory because I think that this is one of their more, ballsy, contemporary acquisitions, and I think that it really is quite a feat, especially coming from Vietnam, because it's a really well-done movie, and it really blends those two type of, genres in the horror world together really well. Not much in the way of special features other than an original trailer for the film, but you do get English subtitles since it is, of course, presented in its native tongue, but a really cool addition into the Scream Factory library. Unfortunately, it isn't being put out on Blu-ray, but the DVD will be sufficient enough. It looks really good for it. It really captures, the natural environment of, the Vietnam city really, really well. Skin tones look good, and detail is actually surprisingly nice, so I don't really know how well a Blu-ray would have improved on this anyway, because the DVD really does get the job done nicely. But, all that said, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging on this one really quick. You get a cool image of, the wife really distraught with that axe in her hand. Very cool stuff. Then on the back, again, you get a backside image of the wife with the axe and some screen grabs too, as well as a description of the film. You take this cool slipcover art that they include on the DVD, and then of course you get that same cover art. And then when you crack this one open, you get some pretty cool disc art, and then another image of the wife with the axe in her hand once you remove the disc. So, like I said, guys, House in the Alley is a pretty cool contemporary release from Scream Factory as a part of their Summer of Fear lineup. It's definitely, one of their more ballsier acquisitions, I would say. It's definitely dealing with content that might be a little too dark for some horror enthusiasts, but I really did like this because it's definitely something fresh and new, especially coming from such an exotic region like Vietnam. So, if you're interested in this sort of thing and are big Scream Factory supporters, you're definitely going to want to check this one out when it becomes available May 27th on DVD. Okay, guys, and available May 27th from Shout Factory is the complete series of The Bob Newhart Show. Now, while 20th Century Fox released the first 4 seasons out on DVD way back in 2005 and 2006, this is the first time that the entire 6-season, 142-episode run of the whole show has been together in one supreme box set. Having been no stranger to working with Bob Newhart since taking over the reins of his other show, simply titled Newhart, Shout Factory is back again working with the comedic genius. Now, for those of you that have never seen The Bob Newhart Show, this, of course, stars Bob Newhart as a Chicago psychologist, Dr. Robert Hartley, and it just is him basically, divvying up time between working with his sometimes unstable and hilarious patients, and, of course, his home life with his wife, who's played by Susan Plachette. This has a great supporting cast that's equally as hilarious as Bob Newhart. That includes Bill Daly from I Dream of Jeannie, Peter Bonners, Jack Riley, and of course Marsha Wallace, who would go on to appear in The Simpsons. Just a hilarious show. I mean, I've said this time and time again, but Bob Newhart is a comedic genius, right up there with Mel Brooks and Steve Martin and Richard Pryor. I mean, Bob Newhart is simply one of the greats, and all of his efforts on television has just basically made television a better place, and most of his shows, including the Bob Newhart Show, go down as simply being some of the best television in history. I remember growing up with the Bob Newhart Show, at least on Nick at Night back in the early 90s. That's really where my first discovery of it is. I know people that grew up with this in the early to mid 70s would remember watching it back on CBS during its original broadcast, but I loved this show growing up. I mean, Bob Newhart, he just has that very dry, hilarious sense of humor, and it's very sarcastic at times, but, the Bob Newhart Show is just another, great entry into, his comedic legacy that just, goes to show just what a great comedian this guy was. Incredible comedic timing, great writing in the show, and again, just, completely surrounded by a wonderful supporting cast that, just managed to stay right on par with, Newhart's great comedic style. Like I said, this great box set encompasses the entire 6-season run that ran from 1972 all the way to 1978, and it has all 142 original episodes. And on top of that, there's a great slew of special features on here. You get a group therapy featurette, which has Bob Newhart sitting down with supporting cast stars such as Peter Bonners, Jack Riley, Bill Daly, and more. It's a great featurette and a really great reunion to see all these guys back again, sitting around, reminiscing about old times on the set and what have you. So it's really cool to see that Bob Newhart and all of them got together for this featurette. On top of that, you get a pilot number 1, which is actually the unaired version of the original Bob Newhart pilot episode, which is a really cool inclusion. You also get the Bob Newhart 19th Anniversary Edition that appeared way back in 1991. It has the entire cast assembling together for a 1-hour clip show, and it finds their show's characters in the present day, which is actually really funny. I actually remember watching that back on Nick at Night. There's also audio commentaries with a bunch of the supporting cast stars on numerous episodes. You get a gag reel, a 40-page collectible booklet, which we'll showcase in just a second, and more. So, like I said, guys, grew up with this show back in the early 90s on Nick at Night. Bob Newhart is simply just one of the comedic geniuses, and all of his shows, including the Bob Newhart Show, have just made the television environment a much better place, and they go down as simply being some of the best television to ever grace the airwaves. So, fantastic stuff. So, all of that said, let's go ahead and get into this great packaging. As you can see, you got a great image of Bob Newhart in his, office armchair there, Dr. Robert Hartley. So, very cool. You got the iconic Bob Newhart Show logo right there. Give you a nice shot of the spine right there, 19 DVD set, awesome stuff. And then a quick shot of the back there. You get a great little shot of the supporting cast, like Marsha Wallace, Bob Newhart, his wife right down there, and then a whole list of the bonus features that you're going to find in this terrific set. And, that's another thing that I really love that Shout Factory decided to do with the Bob Newhart Show. I know as, big TV enthusiasts and big TV on DVD collectors, we're always hoping, that television shows get completed on the format. But when you release one at a time and, sales are so dependent on, making sure that, future seasons continue, it makes it really hard to see if, some of your favorite shows will make it to the finish line. So I really have to, give props to Shout Factory for deciding to put this together in a really great complete series box set, because, like I said, many years ago we were, we were treated with the first 4 seasons out on DVD, but we did never get those last 2 seasons. But it's really great that Shout Factory just decided to give us the entire haul in one sweet box set. So awesome stuff. So like I said, let me just show you that spine where you're going to find all 19 of your discs right there. And I'll showcase the first one right here. This is going to be seasons 1 and 2. Nice shot of the back there that gives you all of the episodes that are going to be included in this season, as well as their original air dates, which is really great. And then when you crack this one open, you get some pretty plain disc art, but, as far as the color scheme goes, it really goes with, the Bob Newhart logo and just, kind of the theme of the box set, which is really cool. And then moving on, the next DVD case, this is going to be seasons 3 and 4. Another great shot of Bob Newhart using a yellow cover right there. And then yet again on the back, you have all of the episode descriptions and their original air dates. Cracking this one open again, kind of going with the same theme, just kind of using the yellow a little bit more promptly on these DVDs. But again, a really nice packaging, very simple, very clean. And then finally, you get to the final one, which is seasons 5 and 6, the ones that we never got back in the mid-2000s, this time utilizing a very bold red color. And yet again, you have all of the episodes and their original air dates placed on the back. And then when you open this one up, similar disc art, this time using a more prominent red on the discs. Very cool stuff, continuing with the theme of this great box set. And then, of course, the 19th DVD that you're going to find is a bonus features disc. Cool little design of Robert Hartley's door right there. And then on the back, you get, quick brief synopsis of, all the things that you're going to find on the bonus features. And then, of course, you get the disc there using a bit of a more orange color scheme going on there. And then, of course, you do get that 40-page booklet that's going to be found right in the front of the box set, again, utilizing Robert Hartley's, psychology door, really cool there. And then when you flip this one open, you get some great images of Bob Newhart and the cast. You get a really great essay to, dig into when you first open this one up. Just want to showcase some of these pictures again, because they're really great stuff, very glossy and, really, clear images. This is just a great companion piece to have in this box set. And then on top of that, you also have all of the episodes, their original air dates, and descriptions of each of the episodes, which, again, is just a great touch. I love that because, when you're really deep in the thicket of watching, these long shows, you tend to lose your place or kind of forget where you were, so it's really helpful to kind of have episode descriptions and, the synopsis of each of them as you're watching them. So really cool stuff. I love when Shout Factory includes things like that. So all that said, guys, Bob Newhart is a comedic genius. I'm so thrilled to have this iconic show of his out in its entirety. So props to Shout Factory on that one. Again, if you grew up with this show like I did in the early 90s of Nick at Night, or, if you grew up watching it during its original broadcast on CBS back in the mid to late 70s, this is a great classic, timeless show to get reacquainted with. And if you're a big fan of Bob Newhart, it should be a no-brainer. So be sure to pick up the complete series of The Bob Newhart Show when it becomes available May 27th from Shout Factory. Alrighty guys, and next up, available right now from Raro Video, is Umberto Lenzi's first foray into the Eurocrime subgenre with 1973's Gang War in Milan. Now this film obviously takes place in Milan and centers on a pimp who runs a really profitable prostitution ring. It isn't until an opposing French gang leader who runs a drug trafficking ring tries to meet up with him and enter into negotiations to create one big operation. When those negotiations kind of turn for the worst, an all-out gang war quickly ensues. This is a film that I had never heard about, although being a very big Umberto Lenzi fan, kind of learning about his career through, his many giallos and horror works in the 1980s. But this comes from, a decade earlier, very early on, and it's actually Umberto Lenzi's first foray into the Eurocrime subgenre. I found a lot to enjoy in this film. It's really cool to kind of be rooting for this really, cocky pimp that, it's a pretty unlikable character. It's not really the type of character that you should be rooting for, but given the circumstances that it's all, gang leaders and whatnot, you really have to pick and choose your battles, but there is definitely something to really like about the character, especially once, his back is really up against the wall, trying to deal with this opposing gang, and then eventually when his own gang turns against him. But the real delight of Gang War in Milan is really just how these two gangs end up getting back at each other. It just becomes this big kind of like Olympics of how each of the gangs are going to get the upper hand on themselves. So, they go to so many extremes where, the drug trafficking gang ends up, dressing up like police officers and kind of, collecting all of the prostitutes and beating them beyond belief, throwing acid in their face and slashing them with knives. There's another really grotesque and kind of nail-biting sequence where the drug trafficking gang actually takes the pimp's right-hand man and ends up electrocuting his genitals in a form of a really intense torture. So that was definitely a nail-biting sequence, but that's really what it is. It just really kind of becomes like an all-out Olympics of, the viewer just kind of checking out how each of these gangs is going to get back at one another. And when, one incident happens, oh, this gang is on top until the opposing gang gets the upper hand with something else. But yeah, some very, very, vicious things going on to kind of get back at one another, but that is really the delight of this film. But there is still, it's a great story in and of itself. I just really like the whole gang warfare thing, the prostitution gang ends up bringing an outside source. It's actually a gangster that was actually in Chicago, but kind of got deported back to the home country. So he is kind of brought in as a bit of an outside consultant to kind of deal with the French gang and the drug trafficking situation. But it's really cool, met with some really great performances, and of course some really great action and violence that you really come to love in Eurocrime films of the 1970s. Really awesome stuff. Raro Video actually transferred this as a new HD transfer from the original 35mm negative, and I thought the film looked really good. A really nice layer, really nice filmic grain layer going on in this one. Black levels are handled really well, and colors are actually very, very vibrant. I mean, down to the clothes and the ties that, some of these gang members are wearing, all the way down to the pimp's apartment that has, this very rich and vibrant blue interior, down to the tabletops, to the walls, to the couches. The guy clearly likes the color blue, but it's very vibrant in the video transfer, and you kind of see that in all of the settings, just kind of how bright and crisp every color is coming off the screen. So really great video transfer from Raro Video. You also get some special features, including the first time that this film has ever been presented in its English dub version, but you also do have the option of watching the Italian version with English subtitles, which is exactly what I did. In addition, you have an intro by Mike Malloy and a fully illustrated booklet with an essay by Mike Malloy. So really awesome stuff. Really enjoyed Umberto Lenzi's first foray into the Euro crime subgenre. And if you're a fan of Lenzi, thanks to his horror efforts, predominantly in the 1980s, I think that a lot of people are going to like this sort of stuff, especially if you like gang warfare films in general, or just Lenzi's, works beyond this one. So definitely check out Gang War in Milan. But all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at this cool packaging. As you can see, there's a really cool, picture of the gangs and all of the principal cast members that you're going to see with a, red and blue logo there. I really like the design job on this one. I think it really encapsulates the film really nicely. And then when you flip that one over, you get a description of the film, all the special features that you're going to find, and of course some more screen grabs of some gang-related warfare going on. And then when you take this cool slipcover off, you get some variant artwork there, which is actually really cool, an opposing gang member strangling another gang member, so really cool stuff. I really like that. I think that's got to be some sort of foreign poster art, I assume. And then yet again on the back, the same sort of stuff, synopsis and the special features. And then when you crack this one open, you get some pretty plain disc art, which is pretty common with Raro Video's Blu-rays, but then you have the booklet in here, which I'm going to showcase right now. Again, kind of utilizing the slipcover art there. And then met with some really cool pictures from the film, and then a great essay by Mike Malloy called The Eurocrime of Gang War in Milan, Lenzi's First and Sabato's Best. Some really cool stuff, met again with some more images from the film. It's a really good read, too. Definitely something to check out after the film. Malloy is definitely quite the authority on the Eurocrime subgenre, so this is a really insightful and informative little essay. And then at the end, you also get a biography on Umberto Lenzi with his filmography on the back. So really good stuff. So, like I said, guys, if you're a fan of the Eurocrime subgenre, I would highly recommend checking out Umberto Lenzi's first foray into it, because it's really good stuff. Some really cool, grotesque kind of gang-related warfare to get back at one another's gang. Really cool stuff, met with some great performances. So overall, had a great time with Gang War in Milan, and I'm sure plenty more people will enjoy it too. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, be sure to scoop it up right now, because it's available courtesy of Raro Video. And next up, guys, available right now from Image Entertainment, is the 25th anniversary edition of Chances Are, starring Sybil Shepherd, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan O'Neal, and Mary Stuart Masterson. Now, this romantic comedy from the director of Dirty Dancing is all about second chances in life. When Sybil Shepherd's loving husband is suddenly killed in an accident, she's kind of left with loneliness and despair for the next 23 years while trying to raise her daughter, Mary Stuart Masterson. Luckily, Ryan O'Neal is there, who kind of plays like the best friend to her husband and her, and is really a big help to her in the wake of her tragic loss. But then suddenly, many years later, Robert Downey Jr. is this upcoming Yale graduate with his whole life ahead of him, when suddenly he's flooded with all these memories and is actually the reincarnated version of Sybil Shepherd's dead husband. Fate kind of intervenes, and he kind of finds his way back into his wife's life, while, Sybil Shepherd clearly doesn't believe all of this. But then at the same time, Robert Downey Jr., before these memories kind of invade his consciousness, is actually kind of falling for Sybil Shepherd's daughter. So it kind of becomes this really funny romantic love triangle amongst them, and it's just really this funny kind of way of, giving yourself a second chance in life and kind of dealing with grief after having lost a loved one. This is actually a pretty fun movie. It's definitely a little sappier than most 80s romantic comedies go, but one that's actually pretty enjoyable. I really loved the cast in this one, really loved Robert Downey Jr.'s 80s era films, and Sybil Shepherd, who's as beautiful as ever in this one, really anchors the film as a loving mother and a really loving wife, and just kind of, a woman that does it all. She has a great career, and she's just trying to keep it together, still holding on to this really devoted love that she has, for her dead husband. Ryan O'Neal is really good, too, playing the role of Philip as kind of, the best friend to Sybil Shepherd, and of course, her dearly departed husband. So he also is secretly harboring this really devoted love that he's held for Sybil Shepherd for many, many years, and, it's been really hard for him to kind of express that to her, considering how much he really cared for his best friend who, who died many years ago. But, it's really cool. The interaction amongst them all is really good. The chemistry is definitely there, but it just kind of gets a little too, sappy, I guess, for my taste. It's definitely got a sweet message to it, but definitely a little too sappy for my particular taste, although the cast really handles everything really well. As you can see, this is actually a 25th anniversary edition that Image has prepped, and unfortunately, the title of this release doesn't really hold that much water. The video transfer is slightly problematic. While it's definitely slightly sharper than its DVD counterpart from many years ago, it just feels like a very lifeless and dull-looking transfer. I mean, colors aren't really doing that much. It's very soft-looking, and it doesn't really seem to look like there's been much in the way of a restoration or a new transfer done in place, but it definitely is a slight upgrade over the DVD, but not much. I definitely was expecting a little bit more for a release dubbed the 25th Anniversary Edition, and on top of that, there's absolutely no special features to speak of, not even a theatrical trailer, which, again, is slightly, a bit of a bummer considering, the people that were involved in this one. It's from the director of Dirty Dancing, so to get, at least a trailer, or maybe even a commentary from the director would have been nice, but alas, it was not meant to be. But like I said, it's definitely a sweet, kind of heartwarming romantic comedy, but definitely a little bit on the sappier side for my taste go, but, it's got a great cast going for it, Robert Downey Jr. in his 80s heyday, Sybil Shepherd, Ryan O'Neal, so definitely some great people to really appreciate in this one, but again, not the greatest romantic comedy, but it's definitely a nice way to kill 90 minutes, so if you're interested in the cast or, 80s romantic comedies in general, then definitely check this out. It's available right now from Image Entertainment. Alrighty guys, and the final title that we're going to discuss in this week's episode of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up is available May 27th from MPI Media Group, and it's 1989's Death Spa. Now, for those of you that have never seen this film, it centers on a new, luxurious, hotshot fitness club that has everything any health nut could ever desire. State-of-the-art technology, really luxurious classes by frisky and very buff instructors, but unfortunately the gym has become possessed by the spirit of the dead wife's owner. So, slowly but surely, all of the machines in the gym are, kind of extracting, all these deadly turns for all of the gym patrons, creating, this really great health spa into a complete den of death, if you will. This is a really cool film, and it's definitely one of those films from the 1980s that really plays on that whole health and gym craze that was so dominant in that decade. I really root that whole kind of gym craze to Olivia Newton-John's Physical song. That's really my earliest memory of, that whole health nut stuff, but it kind of continued throughout the decade in dance films like Flashdance, and then, Death Spa isn't really the first film that got really acquainted with kind of parodying that whole craze. Linnea Quigley's Killer Workout did it as well, but Death Spa kind of came at the tail end of the 1980s, And it's really kind of like a swan song for, horror films of that decade. The decade was really winding down, so kind of, the onslaught of horror movies in general that was dominating the theaters week in and week out was kind of coming to an end. So I really like and admire Death Spa because it kind of throws everything in the kitchen sink at you, as far as, it's got a supernatural presence. It really, kind of pushes that whole health craze and, whole gym nut craze that was going on. So you get to see a lot of really funny and hilarious imagery of people in like the really bright and vibrant gym gear, which is really funny. You get some really cool practical makeup effects for the death sequences that are really cool, and it's really awesome because this film is actually being presented in its uncut presentation, which is awesome. So you really get to see and appreciate all of that cool practical effects and all of the bloody gore that would have been missed in its theatrical or VHS release back in the day. But this film was a lot of fun. I think that I would really compare to other goofball B-movie oddities like Killer Party or Ninja 3: The Domination. I mean, there's just so much going on in this film to really capitalize on its horror movie angle. You get some horror vets in this one, like Ken Voorhees from Dawn of the Dead. You also get the actress that played Greta in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, the Dream Child, making an appearance in this one. And then, of course, you have like a lot of the horror movie conventions that you can come to really count on in the 1980s. Plenty of TNA with a lot of gorgeous women, taking showers and fully nude in there. And then, of course, again, just a lot of cool practical makeup effects, and of course you get the supernatural angle in there with the owner of the gym's dead wife kind of possessing all of the machines, and everybody, a bunch of the gym patrons meeting a very untimely and gory end for themselves. So a lot of cool stuff going on in this film, and I think anybody that really appreciates and digs really goofy and cheesy 1980s cult films, I think Death Spa will really be up your alley. But I'm really pleased to say that MPI Media Group did a really great job with this one. The film is actually being presented in a new 2K high-def transfer from the original uncut and uncensored camera negative. When the film kicks off, the opening titles are a little murky. The black levels could have been helped a little bit better, but it still looks pretty good. But shortly after the main title sequences, the film stabilizes really nicely. Flesh tones look like they're relayed pretty naturally. The really over-the-top, vibrant pastel colors of the gym patrons' attire is really bright and crisp and vibrant and really jumps out at the screen on you. So that's really something that looks really good in this transfer. I mean, the whole gym environment is very bright and very, vibrant, so that really comes across in this transfer, so I really appreciated that. There are, occasional instances of flakes and speckles, but nothing that really intrudes in the viewing experience. Overall, the film looks really good and, is without question the best it's ever looked. It's a huge, huge upgrade over, your original Gorgon VHS that some of you might still be retaining onto, but this Blu-ray presentation is hands down the best Death Spa has looked and will arguably ever look. In addition, you get some great special features on here, including an audio commentary with the director, producer, and editor, which is a great listen, and then you get an Exercise in Terror, the Making of Death Spa feature, which is an incredibly really informative 50-minute behind-the-scenes documentary on the making of the film. Everything that you ever wanted to know and learn about Death Spa, you're gonna find in this documentary. I was so absolutely surprised to see that nearly an hour-long documentary was prepared for a film like Death Spa, but I guess in this day and age with so many great independent distributors giving second life to these cult movie gems, it shouldn't come as any surprise, but it still does surprise me. I mean, a 50-minute, retrospective documentary with the makers of the film and the cast and crew talking about this film now is really awesome, and it's a great watch for anybody that enjoys this film. And then closing that out, you get a theatrical trailer and a video trailer, so great spread of special features to cut into after you enjoy Death Spa. So, like I said, guys, if you're a big fan of cheesy, over-the-top 1980s horror films that, specifically have, a big slant on the whole 80s, health nut gym craze, then Death Spa is definitely going to be up your alley. So, be sure to scoop it up from MPI Media Group when it becomes available on May 27th. Okay, guys, and that about does it for this week's installment of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. As always, thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to stay subscribed to the Mike's Pop Culture Playhouse YouTube channel, and of course, like the Facebook page to stay up to date with all the latest news. As far as next week goes, I'm really going to try hard to squeeze in at least one more weekly wrap-up episode with advanced reviews for Scream Factory's Ravenous, as well as Devil's Knot from Image Entertainment and In the Blood. So, and then of course, I'm also going to try and squeeze in a few written reviews from Impulse Pictures and Vinegar Syndrome. But for those of you that may or may not know, next Saturday I'm actually getting married. So as one can imagine, this upcoming week is going to be pretty crazy, just kind of putting, final adjustments and last minute things in order. But I really want to try and set you guys up with some final reviews to enjoy before, of course, we head out on our honeymoon. So like I said, stay tuned to the YouTube page and the Facebook page for all the latest news, and I'll see you guys when I get back for sure. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.